Welcome back. Well, as we observe the 50th anniversary of that famous march in Selma, Alabama, we turn to look at what is happening in America today, most notably the civil rights violations of young black men that we have seen repeated over and over again, often resulting violently in their death, with the most recent being a 19-year-old young man shot in Wisconsin just yesterday. Well, earlier today, attorney Lisa Bonner, she joined us to discuss this and the latest report from the Department of Justice over the handling of the Darren Wilson Michael Brown shooting there in Missouri. Lisa Bonner, attorney, is here with us today on Arise News Weekend, and you are from St. Louis, Ferguson, Missouri area, and you have been following this case since last summer. The Department of Justice obviously investigating the police department and the actions of Officer Darren Wilson after the shooting there. Talk to me about what you found was so compelling about the report that they issued last weekend.
Well, being from St. Louis, it wasn't exactly shocking to me because this is something I grew up with. And what they found was a consistent pattern of racial profiling, of unwarranted and unconstitutional stops, unconstitutional citations, profiteering. They found a vast variety of issues, but specifically those 5 issues were the ones that really stood out, and they found that was to be just consistent, ongoing, and as it's just been a pattern of perpetual abuse by the Ferguson Police Department
against African Americans.
Against African Americans.
And some of those abuses were documented in emails, leading to 2 police officers no longer being in the force and 1 clerk. Talk to me about what in some of those emails and documents that were released in the report you found to be so salacious and so horrifying.
Well, I think the thing is that they've always, covered things up, and that's goes on in a lot of police departments apparently. And so they did find a lot of cover-ups in the emails, but the things that they have found so offensive that really leads it into this case that they are building against the Justice Department is building against Ferguson is the fact that they made fun of African Americans and really portrayed them as monkeys, as chimpanzees, as buffoons, as Africans. In one email, they had a picture of Michelle Obama, someone dancing in an African gear, and they were saying it was her high school reunion. And then they had a picture of President Obama as a chimpanzee, and it was really. Those are things that they're not illegal per se, but they do show a history and a perpetual thought pattern that is really going into these stops. And if you're thinking about blacks as chimpanzees, then you're actually thinking of them as less than humans. And they have really been treating us as such.
Does it then change the mindset, perhaps, of how you go about policing the area? And that would cut to the chase of what outgoing Attorney General Eric Holder is trying to do. We know that Loretta Lynch of Brooklyn, New York, is actually going to be the incoming Attorney General, and we'll see what she ends up doing with this. But what is the real status of I guess it's a throwdown to say, if you guys don't clean up your act, Eric Holder, Department of Justice, says we could dismantle your whole police department. Can they do that legally, and why would they?
They can do that legally, apparently, because it's something that they have the jurisdiction to do. Because they are finding, like I said, such abusive and patterns of just racial profiling that is just no good. And you have an all-white police department policing a majority African American population. And so what you have in there, they have the ability to do that.
So what's the goal? To set a precedent and say, clearly this isn't the only police department that is like that, that's sort of lopsided in terms of who is in it and who is represented. Was this going to serve as some kind of a template going forward, or is this just kind of a stare down?
I think that what he is clearly trying to do, in my opinion, is send a message to a lot of these other police departments, because there are Fergusons all over the country. Let's be clear about that. And I think what he's trying to do is say, listen, we've got our eye on you. And as a nation, we certainly have a heightened sense of hysteria, so to speak, because there's so much outrage over these shootings of these unarmed black people and teens, and for no good reason. So I think that they're saying, listen, we've got our eye on you, so you better toe the line just a bit better, because what we're going to do is, if they are going to investigate these people.
Looking back 50 years to Selma, because this is, of course, the anniversary, what do you think today's events in Selma, Alabama have to say in terms of, the recent events and the protests that have gone on that were akin to what prompted this whole Bloody Sunday 50 years ago?
It is like we are living back in 1965 in some ways, because what you're seeing through the pictures, as you are seeing people marching, peacefully. You're seeing blacks and whites protesting something that was illegal, the fact that we did not have the right to vote. And now we're protesting the same things. It's important, absolutely, that we remember our history, but it's very, very important because it is documenting what is going on today on a daily basis in the Fergusons. And we had a shooting in Wisconsin this morning. And so we are seeing this all over again, history repeating itself.
The argument can be made that things will only change when they change legally,
yes,
when they change economically, in terms of economic parity, in terms of there being more social justice at a ground level.
Right.
And that then perhaps people's mindsets can begin to change. So is that where Eric Holder's proposal comes in at this point, to sort of begin to help change that mindset?
I think so, but you also have to, it's topical right now, Selma, because they were fighting for the right to vote. So I think one of the things that we have to do is remember, it's important to vote on a national level, absolutely, but what is happening in Ferguson underscores the importance of voting at a local level, because these are the rules and the laws and the ordinances that affect everyday citizens. If you were voting for your city council members, if they were voting, but you have to have people also that want to run. So that is also what Eric Holder is trying to incentivize people. Economically, people will stay in Ferguson. It's a town of apartment buildings. It is a town of townhomes. It's not very many rent-owned single-family homes. They do have them, but as a large part, because of these municipalities and the way that they were founded, overwhelmingly there's a large majority of people living in apartments. And so you have to incentivize people to stay. You have to have them build infrastructure in the neighborhood. You have to incentivize them to run and stay and be a part of the police department, be a part of the neighborhood, go to your church, get involved on a local level. And I think that's very, very important. And that is akin to what went down 50 years ago.
People in positions of power, yes, who are more reflective of the community,
absolutely,
that they are serving. Attorney Lisa Bonner, thank you so much for your insights here on Arise News Weekend.
We
really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Well, still to come, we'll have more of our special coverage of Selma at 50. Join the conversation at #Selma50. You're watching Arise News Weekend.